Tech Talk Tuesday. Let's see, I got a shiny head. Yeah, I think it's just a problem that I have. I think I have a shiny head. Come on in, everybody. Let's go. I got some stuff to tell you. Tech Talk number 137 today. I was wrong last week. I said it was 135, but it was 136. Hey, Chuck, Kevin, Daryl, how y'all? Look at that. Got a little light on my head. Isn't that nice? I think I'm going to move just so I don't have that big. Wow, that's hard to do, isn't it? Good preparation, right? Mercy, goodness gracious. I got a good light on me. The Lord shines his light on me, doesn't he? Let's see what this looks like. Ooh, that's a little better. There we go. All right. Hey, Robert, John, Chuck, yep, Steve. Hi, Steve. Thank you for that info. I'll share that with us in a little bit. I want to tell you guys about what's going on and what's been happening and what we're all interested in, which is hot rod engines. Hey, Mark. Yeah, my halo, all right. But what I've learned over 137 weeks doing this and 40-something years of my life is that we all have a passion for hot rod engines and how to make them go faster and how to make more power and we're just, that's what we're into. I mean, I know we're into other stuff. We, guys and gals, some of us really are into that stuff. Hey, Matt, Mark, hey, Mike Lingo, good to see you on here. Thank you for guys for clicking in, checking in, coming to see us, looking on here and seeing, let's see who I see on here. I see me. I see Mark. Yep, we're coming. They're coming. They're lining up. Good. All right, so I was going to do a little quick catch up on, I stayed home for the Gator Nationals. I didn't go to the NHRA race in Florida, which I'm glad I didn't, because if I was there, I would have been really cold and I would have been really wet. And I'm glad all you guys that went and girls that went did real well. We had an all-female final in the Pro Stock Motorcycle, which was really cool, with Angie Smith and Karen Stouffer, and records were set. And my friend that's over there was tuning. He said that I saw the conditions were incredible, below sea level. It was they call them mine shaft conditions, which a mine below the ocean would be really pretty low. But for you guys that are all smart and all you people that know that sea level is based on a zero that we have on our altitude, and everything above that is called above sea level, and everything below sea level is even lower than that. So I think it's 29.92 barometer and somewhere around 60 degrees dry air. That's one of the correction factors that they use to come up with where we are. And most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, NASCAR, NHRA, and all the other racing organizations in the world run somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 feet. We go to almost 4,000 feet some places, corrected altitude, and we go to 1,000 feet corrected altitude. And sometimes on a Friday night at Redding or Sonoma, California, or somewhere like that, we may get some corrected altitude lower than 1,000 feet. Denver, Colorado is 8,000 to 10,000 corrected foot altitude, which means there's hardly any oxygen up there. And the only way we get air and fuel into, we get fuel into engines with injection, but the only way we get atmosphere into the engines, unless they're blown or nitrous injected or supercharged, is with God's atmosphere. And I saw somewhere, and one of you guys that were there, Jim, Ron, Steve, was there, I saw where the barometer was like 30.30 or 30.4, which is numbers I'd never really seen before. That's really high pressure. So if that's really true, if it was 30.3 or 30.4, that means that the atmosphere was literally standing on top of the intake valve. Yes, Steve says 30.28. Yep. So the atmosphere was standing on top of the intake valve, pushing on it, waiting for it to open. It was almost like a little bit boost. And I wanted you guys to understand what that really means, because when we go to St. Louis or we go to Norwalk, Ohio, or wherever you race, the barometer sometimes real near 2850 to 2920. That's the barometer. That's the barometric pressure, and the pressure in the barometer is what pushes the air in the engine. Because when the piston goes down and the intake valve opens, the barometer, the outside pressure, fills that cylinder with barometer. And there's no, it's the only way that it gets in there. Then, of course, the tricky cam timing and how fast the air is coming in and how fast we stop the piston and then start back up on compression, and then we trap extra in there and shut the valve on time. That gives us more than volumetric efficiency. 100% volumetric efficiency is when all that is dead nuts. When with a pro stock style engine or some of the real high racing engines make 120 to 130% volumetric efficiency, and that's some real trapping going on there. And I would say this weekend, according to a bunch of you folks that were there and watched it on TV, know that we had above average conditions. As a matter of fact, I'm 67 years old, and I can't remember the day that I've raced when it was really cold. I've raced when it's really wet, and I've raced when the conditions were unbelievable. I've gone testing down in Florida. I've gone testing at Bradenton and Gainesville and Orlando all through the wintertime, SGMP, where conditions were incredible. I've seen all that, done all that, but I've never seen the combination of the barometer, the temperature, the wind, and the humidity and the grains of water. It was almost a perfect storm for setting records. And I know if you watch TV, that's another good point. The grains of water were really low. It was dry. It was cool, dry, and high pressure. Very, very hard to duplicate that combination. So you're gonna set some records. So then, yeah, it does. It happens even at Donald Long's races. He gets to see that stuff sometimes. But what you get is you get more power than you've ever had in your life, and you have the same track, best case. And if the sun's out, you've got a track nice and warm, and you've got an engine that's just trying to outrun the tire. And you can see some of our heroes, the people that we look up to, and some of our stars couldn't get down the track. I mean, Antron did. I'm not going to take out anybody's name and say like that. Antron and Leah Pruitt and those guys, they only got one run. And Top Fuel, a lot of times one run won't get you in. That's why they need 2 or 3 or 4 rounds of qualifying to get some of those tricky vehicles in. Now, the people that test pro stock motorcycles and pro stock cars, we don't get to test in these kind of conditions very often. And I say we like I'm there, but I'm not. But I have been there, and I was there in my mind. I was wanting to try and help however I could. And man, it was fun to sit at home and watch the people really showcase their abilities. And I had a friend send me a note back, and he said, I've looked all through my 20 years of data, and I can't find any weather to match this weather to look at. No data so you were blazing a trail. You had to really work for it, figure it out. So if you guys are wondering, if you were there, you would put a small sprocket on the back. You would not run as much ignition timing, and you may have to run a lot of launch retard, which would take power away where you can spin. People shake the tires, spin the tires, and when you take a lot of timing away, might have had to pull 20 or 30 degrees timing in places to try and get it hooked up, because we were dealing with more horsepower than normal. And, people say, man, I got too much power. Well, I still never had too much power. 10 to 13% more fuel was required because you had 10 to 13% better atmosphere. That's right, Steve. Thank you. Steve's been great, giving me some good feedback here, Steve Nichols. I mean, he's a really smart guy. He builds ECUs, sells EFI to people all over the world, and he's got a distributorship where he's the main guy for Max ECU in America, and he sells dynamic dynamometers, and he's always been a resource for me and a good friend. He won't tell me how people are going fast, but we talk about math and we talk about engines, and it's always interesting. And there's a lot of guys on here that are friends of mine that can kind of help with this. But I wanted to tell you, everybody was struggling with it because it was more power than normal. And it seems like one of my friends, Jaska Salakari from Finland, he runs a nitro bike, and he said that what he always did was he just cut the nitro with alcohol. In other words, instead of running say 100% or 98% or 95%, he would put alcohol in it. And I said, well, how much horsepower? And he says, well, if I want 1,000 horsepower, I run X percent. If I want 1,500 horsepower, I run X percent. So he could put as much power to the track as he wanted to based on how much alcohol percentage he put in to mix with his nitro. With gasoline, that's not our deal. We all go home, we all buy parts, we try camshafts, we port the heads, we do testing, we do dynamometer testing, and we try to find more horsepower. And when you showed up at Gainesville, the good Lord gave you 10 or 12% in the bank. Here it is, you bought your ticket, you got your pit pass, here's 10% horsepower. And that's why we saw unbelievable times. And we saw people that normally go from A to B with really great performance. They run big mile an hour. They run great ETs when the air is less good, which means it was a struggle to adjust with more power than you've ever had before. And it was colder than normal. Track temperatures 100 to 130 degrees is normal. This was like almost 70 or 80 degrees on the hottest part. So the track was on the verge of being cold at the same time. I wrote down some numbers. First of all, I want to say, with you looking at my face, I want to say Karen Stouffer won the race, set the record on her Suzuki. It had a Vance & Hines engine with the 4-valve billet head that they built. It's a marvel. I have not held one in my hand and looked at it. I can only imagine how trick it is, because everything I've ever seen from Vance & Hines was really trick anyway. And yeah, that's right, Steve. If you have 400 horsepower and you get 10%, that's 40 more horsepower. The pro stock cars, you know, running 1,400 horsepower, and they picked up 10. They got 140 more horsepower. So it's very interesting how that works at 10 to 12%. But back to the Vance & Hines deal. I'm not privy to their stuff. I see photos from in the pits. I see the engines and stuff. I've seen a couple cutaway shots of the cylinder head, and it's a great piece. And she was able to go out and run fast with it. And there's several people out there that have that same Vance & Hines head. I didn't see anybody run the Vance & Hines Harley this year. I saw the other Suzukis running. A couple of them had the 2-valve head that Vance & Hines makes, and also Mitch Brown makes the monster head that was on a couple of the 2 or 3 of the other bikes. And I did have something to do with that through my days and initial design and development work on that. But I pay attention because I did it for all my life, and I'm a interested spectator now, and I get to talk to a lot of the people that are racing, and it's always interesting to me. But I want to give Vance & Hines and Karen Stouffer and the War team, Homie and Jerry and those guys over there, that whole team, hardworking guys. And if you give them horsepower, they'll throw it to the track and show you how fast it'll go. Now, I'm going to change over to the board, and let's look at what I wrote down here. Let's see if I can get this to work. All right, I got to flip the camera. All right, I wrote down here, just for the fans that don't know, this is something that gets asked on TV about the TV show. Vance & Hines engines, the monster head. Vance & Hines has entries in a 4-valve and a 2-valve. The 2-valve head that Vance & Hines sells is a cast head, and it's shaped like the old Kawasaki head, and it has some good history to it. Their new head is the new billet 4-valve head, and it is, all of them, I think both of these are 1,850 cc's, 1,855 cc's, which gives you around 113 cubic inches. Think about that. Around 400 horsepower, maybe 380, but it's around 400 horsepower with the 4-valve head, and it's probably a little less with the 2-valve head, probably 20 horsepower less. I believe this number is going to spread. If there's 20 horsepower difference between them, like 370 and 390, I think they're going to get further apart as this 4-valve develops, because it's really pretty new. And the 2-valve guys get to run 20 pounds lighter than the 4-valve guys. I think that's right. Somebody can correct me on that, but I thought it was around somewhere near 600 pounds bike and rider with the 2-valve, and somewhere around 620 bike and rider with the 4-valve. It could be 5 pounds off, so don't make this a like me trying to tell the gospel here. Monster is the head that Mitch Brown sells. George Baber, Matt Smith, and some of those other folks work hard trying to make this combination work as well. I think one of the scrapper bikes had the monster head on it that Matt rode, and one of the scrapper bikes had, nope, I think both of the scrapper bikes might have had the monster 4-valve head on it. And the S&S 160, like Angie Smith got runner-up with, and she went really fast too. I think she got her career best run like a 671 or 2, and it's 160 cubic inches, and I think it has to weigh 630. Now, the 4 valves does have a finger follower. That means that it has a little bit rocker ratio to it to make the valve move faster and quicker. And let's see what else. Oh, Karen's record run. I got off Facebook, I saw a picture of the time slip, and I wrote down Karen Stouffer, when she set the record, she went a 103 with a 560 foot, and I think she had about 4 103s. If it wasn't 4, I mean, it's pretty close, which was very consistent and really hard to beat. Plus, she was cutting good lights. A 277, that's the best 330 I've ever heard of. A 425 with a 6 is the best 8th mile I've ever heard of. And 165.01 is really big speed in the 8th for normally aspirated heavy motorcycle. Probably 615 to 620 with the rider. 640 pounds. Okay, I saw that. 1,000 foot was 555 with a 1, and the quarter mile was 6.665, and she went 200.7 on this record run. Now, I want to tell you a couple things that I've talked about on Tech Talk a lot is the back half numbers in the last 320. And what we do to get the last 320 is we take the 1320, which she went 6.665. And I want to tell you, I got to give her credit right here. The motorcycle went like a laser from the start line to the finish line. And she must have shifted on time every time because the bike was very consistent and it was going very fast. And if you guys don't care about pro stock motorcycles or motorcycles and you're only interested in cars or Harleys, back up just a second and take your blinders off and listen to this horsepower per cubic inch and this RPM show and application of horsepower, because all of this is interesting to us if we take our blinders off and realize that we're talking about world record performance for machines and humans. The performance of the machines and the humans. I just want to share this with you. We take the 666 with a 5 and subtract the 1,000 foot of 5.551, and it gives us a 1.114 seconds to go the last 320. This is 1,000 foot. This is 1320. I might write that on there to help us. This is 1,000 foot, and this is 1320. So the last 320 feet, it took Karen 1.11 seconds to go the last 320. Now, this number is important to compare. This is kind of like our at-track dyno sheet. Another thing that's really important to compare is the 6.665 quarter mile time and subtract the 8th mile time from it. 4.256 gives us a back half of 2.414. So when I look, I know if you hook up good, you're going to go 103, 104, 105. If you drive really straight and shift on time, you're going to go a 430 something, 160 something. That's pretty good. These are two numbers that I'm not used to seeing. This is a number I'm not used to seeing. I saw a couple of 103s last year. Steve Johnson did it once or twice. I think Karen did. Jerry Savoy did. But I think there may be a 102 out there, but I'd say 105 is more average. This 277, I've not seen that number before, but I believe the record was before this run was about 4.29 or 4.25 in 4.29 to 4.30 in the 8th, and this is a new record here. Now the 165 and the 5551 and the 6665, now those are outstanding. This is important to compare everybody else to 241 to a 111. Just to throw some numbers out, I'm going to move over here to Erica Ender's record. I don't have her whole time sheet, but I do have some interesting numbers. She set the NHRA Pro Stock car record at 6.45. She went a 413 in the 8th at 169 miles an hour. Now I'm going to move these over so you can see them at the same time. And I'm going to raise it enough to where you can. Hold on. There we go. This is interesting to me. Erica has a very aerodynamic Camaro, probably 0.29, 0.3 drag coefficient, and she had a back half of 2.32. And Karen bike is a 2.414. Also, we all see and read and hear about, I saw Erica go 169 on one run, didn't she? I see, yeah, that's right. Oh, Erica, you're right. Yeah, Karen went 165 and Erica went 169. But what I wanted to separate these thoughts were, this is a fairly dirty machine, not because of Karen not tucking in and not because it's an old TL Suzuki. I mean, it's an old TL. Like we debuted a TL back in 2022 or 2021, and it's not necessarily the most aerodynamic package, but it gets a lot of air for the engine, so you can make a lot of power early. So this 425, 165 is incredible. And Erica, with her Camaro and fuel injection and 500 cubic inches, she went 413, which is, what is that? That's only, what's that, 15, 12 hundredths quicker. But in the back, the next 660, the back half, Erica went 2.32 and Karen went 2.41. So that's only 9 hundredths difference in the back 660, the second 660 of the quarter mile. I thought that was very, very interesting. And if I knew the rest of the numbers here, we could do the math and figure out her last 320. But the pro stock cars are almost twice as aerodynamic as the pro stock motorcycles. Now that's hard for somebody to visualize because they say, yeah, but the bike is so tiny and the car is so big. But if you look at the area times the actual drag coefficient in there, and that's the engineering terms that are above my pay grade. But if Erica's car is a 0.3, Karen's motorcycle is about a 0.5 or more. And I just wanted you to see that that's how strange it is. Now another question I got earlier was, oh, I'm not on Karen's team. I didn't do anything on this team. I'm not taking any credit for it. I am giving credit for these guys over here. The War team, Vance and Hines, and Karen Stover and her team. They did a great job preparing. But I am a fan, and I enjoyed watching this performance. And I saw some people that normally go fast didn't, and they will. I think as the season progresses, we'll see the conditions will go back to somewhat normal, and we'll see some performance come back to normal. But I think we'll see a lot more 670s this year when the conditions come back to more regular, which is 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 foot corrected altitude. Now, at one time this weekend, I saw minus 1,000 feet. So if you go somewhere where the conditions are extraordinary, like 1,000 foot above sea level, this was 2,000 feet lower than that. That's hard to believe. Now, what's important, as I said earlier, in that when you get to 1,000 foot below or sea level, is the barometric pressure that actually forces the air into the engine to make horsepower. And the guys that tune and the gals that tune, they have to be really good at getting the air-fuel ratio right. I don't care if it's gasoline, alcohol, methanol, nitro, whatever. When you got that much barometer, you have to treat it a little bit like boost, and you got to put fuel in where you need it to make sure it goes fast. Let's see. Somebody asked me about the Hayabusa bodywork. It's new. There's some aerodynamic ones. I saw 2 of them. I saw an old Hayabusa style and a new Hayabusa style, and I understand there is another Hayabusa style on the drawing board. I read somewhere where Vance and Hines is going to have a new Hayabusa that's going to make Angel's bike faster and Eddie's bike faster, and they're going to have to go to catch up with Karen's old 20-year-old body. And I'm not talking about her body. I'm talking about the motorcycle. There's only 2 bodyworks I saw on the Busas, and I could be wrong. I think it's the TL. Maybe there's an older GS XR style, but the TL is one, which is an old TL 1000 body. It's an old style. And then the new Hayabusa and the newer Hayabusa. And of course, you're watching Angie Smith running with her, I guess that is a EBR, Eric Buell racing style bodywork. It's very aerodynamic, and it has really good scoops on it, and the scoops matter on these. And I want to tell you, I know I'm running out of time here, but I wanted to share with you guys that the incredible feet here, the incredible feet here, and the ones that didn't go as fast as they should, it was because they were overpowered or had more air and more potential than they were ready for. I saw folks that get down the track all the time, jumping and hopping and leaping because the bike was trying to actually what's it called when you outperform yourself, or you overperform, or it's just like trying too hard. But it was fun to watch. I'm glad I wasn't there. I'm glad I got to see it on TV. They did a great job on TV. Oh, I see. Brian, yeah, that's a great question. That's going to have to come at my next one. But look, again, you guys, the feedback. Oh, my gosh. You ask me great questions. You make great suggestions. And I know there's a lot more that needs to be talked about all this because of how cool these engines are. And I want to share that with you as much as I can. This is last thing I want to put in your mind. The quickest I've ever seen one of these go, Pro Stock Motorcycle, is somewhere around 1.11. Maybe somebody did a 110 like Matt Smith or something one day, 1.1. But I want to tell you that when you go to the wind tunnel and you work hard to get some aerodynamics, and it makes the vehicle really slippery, and you go 165 here and you go 200 here, if you get it really slippery and you go 165 here and 201 here or 202, I've seen more than that, but this is normal for really fast ones, is the 1.11. Think about it. How much is left in our runs to go from a 430 to a 425? That's 500s that were found just recently in the air. But right here, going from your best of being a 112 or a 111, and then there's only one left here, I think. And so the part that you need to work on, in my opinion, is the part that takes 4.2 seconds, not the part that takes 2.4 seconds, and not for sure not the part that only takes 1.1 seconds, because there is only 1/1000th to improve here, and there's a lot more to improve from here back. That's what I got for the day. Tech Talk Tuesday, number 137. It's a wrap. You guys watched. I'm thankful for you tuning in. Please send me feedback. Please send me questions. I love that, and I'll do better next time. Thank you so much. God bless y'all. Good night.